Why do you think he tries to make friends with certain players on the team? Like, he's not trying to make friends with Jordan Mason or Dominic Pooney yet, but
Mhm.
he absolutely is trying to make friends with Christian McCaffrey. Went to his wedding, thought he was friends with Deebo Samuel, thinks he's friends with Trent Williams. I don't know, like, why is this so important to him? I don't think Sean McVay is like that. I don't think Bill Belichick was like that. Why Kyle? What is he trying to do?
Well, there's a lot to that. First of all, Kyle Shanahan wanted to be an NFL wide receiver growing up.
Mhm.
That's what he wanted to be. He played in high school and he played a little bit in college, caught 17 passes. Um, that's who he wants to be. So he wants to be part of the cool kids. He wants to be an NFL player. Like he said, Ricky Pearsall reminds him of himself, which is crazy. I think Kyle just wants to be included. He wants to be part of the cool kid. I think he gets a little insecure around these real players. I know that sounds funny and people are going to get mad that I said that, but like Alex Boone told a story about how Kyle Shanahan, when he first started coaching the 49ers, he would cuss a lot when speaking in front of large groups. And if you understand really what that means, is it basically it's a nervous reaction. Like he doesn't feel comfortable standing in front of large groups of football players. So he's cussing to try to like fit in. And it's just not a comfortable leadership persona. And I think Kyle's just not a natural leader of men. And I think he kind of wishes he was an NFL player. And so he latches on to these great players that he has on his team and wants to just be one of the guys and wants to be accepted and appreciated.
So I agree. He's got a little bit of imposter syndrome because remember, he's got the nepotism label too. He didn't play in the league. He wasn't a good college player. He's Mike Shanahan's son. And that's why he got the opportunities he got. He's also very gifted and very skilled. But he's not a natural leader and he's got the nepotism label. So for him, I think it's very important that the star players on his team who are vocal, who have podcasts or media opportunities like him, vouch for him, say nice things about him. And I think he will bend over backwards to appease those players where, Jordan Mason's not going to say anything, you're benched. But Deebo Samuel could say something. Deebo Samuel could turn a lot of people against him and make it seem like he's no longer liked by his players. Got to make sure that perception doesn't happen because he seems like he has a ton of job security right now, but all it takes is players being like, I don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Brandon Marshall did an interview with Kyle Shanahan. I forget when it was, a year or two ago. And Kyle was just like a different person talking to him than you ever hear him
Almost
talk to
starstruck.
anybody. Starstruck. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I really believe that this is part of it. Kyle just wants to be accepted by the star players on his team. I don't know if he's thinking like, hey, I need to make sure that I'm friends with them so they don't talk. I don't know if he's going down that thought process. I think it's just like, I want to be a cool kid. I really think that's the basis of it.
I think it's that, but I also think it's the basis of his job security in the league. I need George Kittle to like me.
Mm-hmm.
I need George Kittle to be in my corner. I need Deebo to be in my corner. And I think one of the reasons he likes Brock Purdy so much is because he doesn't have to worry about Brock embarrassing him, saying something to the media, undercutting him, questioning him the way that Jimmy was at the end.
That's weak, insecure leadership is what that is.
Correct.
If that's
also,
what's
I think
going
one
on.
of the reasons he liked Kirk Cousins so much. Kirk Cousins is a yes sir guy.
If that's what's going on, that's weak. I hope that can't be what it is. I mean, when you're a real natural leader, it should be the other way around. It should be where these players want the coach to like them and that they're trying their best to get that accomplished by doing what the coach wants, being a good employee, being a good teammate. Like it should be the other way around. You should never have your coach trying to get the players to like them. They should just like them naturally. And if not, it's ship up or ship out. That should be the leadership of a coach. Like he should be the guy in this building that everyone wants to impress. It shouldn't be the other way around.
Right. And I think what we've seen consistently is when a player becomes very powerful in the 49ers, successful, rich, Kyle Shanahan caters to him. Christian, you don't want to come out of the game. What can I say? He didn't want to come out of the game. Nick Bosa, you want a new defensive coordinator? Who you want? You name him. I mean, that's not leadership. And I think that's very alarming behavior from a guy who's been a head coach for a long time. It seems like he's getting weaker as time goes on. Maybe he'll have a hell of an offseason this year, a hell of a year. But this whole thing, if he ever gets fired by the Niners and has a new start somewhere else, he needs to think about this thing he did with the Niners for almost a decade, making friends with players. And how did that help him? And did that help his team? Because I know you don't, or you're not certain of it, but I think it's a survival tactic is what I'm saying. I think it's a survival tactic. And I think he got it from his dad. From what I understand, his dad was very, very close friends with John Elway. And that was a big way that Mike Shanahan kind of took the team away from Dan Reeves. Mike Shanahan was the offensive coordinator for Dan Reeves in Denver for a long time. Eventually, it became Mike Shanahan's team because John Elway liked him. So,
interesting.
Machiavellian strategery.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake either way. I don't know what the meaning is behind it, or whether it's a conscious decision to be this way for him, or if it's just him trying to fit in. I don't know what it is, but that's not the kind of leadership you want. You want a coach who has a design, a plan in mind for this team and this organization, with accountability, standards in place that the players are striving to meet. And friendship shouldn't be a priority on that list.
Well, maybe Kyle Shanahan has learned now that you could treat a certain player like a son and give him everything he wants and still have that player turn his back on you and request a trade when because that's what's best for him when he's 29. And you didn't get anything from that relationship. Maybe in the future, you got to leave a little bit more distance, a lot more distance.
And it feel like he forced the ball to Deebo Samuel quite a bit over these last 2 years.
Yep.
In order to appease Deebo Samuel, and that was a mistake.
I mean, they might have beaten the Chiefs. The Chiefs, we just got smoked in the Super Bowl. They were not that great. They were vulnerable. They didn't score that many points against the Niners. I mean, maybe if the Niners hadn't wasted like 13 or 14 or 15 plays on Deebo Samuel on offense, they win that game. Maybe if those targets go to anyone else.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I mean, there's been a couple games where the whole plan, I forget what game it was, where Deebo got hurt, and they just looked like they didn't know what they were going to do on offense. And then after the game, George Kittle talked about a lot of the game plan was to go to Deebo Samuel. And so, this could be I think this is going to be a good thing for Kyle Shanahan to move on from Deebo, so he doesn't feel like he has to do that anymore, even though he shouldn't anyway.
Agree. And I feel like Deebo's so demanding and Kyle doesn't stand up to him. Like, that's what we're saying. Why does Kyle Shanahan make friends with certain players? Because he can't stand up to the really strong ones. So instead of having like a confrontation, he tries to keep him on his side. But you can't always do that. Sometimes you got to stand up to Deebo Samuel when he punches the long snapper. Sometimes you got to stand up to him, and he doesn't seem to have it in him. I mean, maybe he can stand up to Jimmy Ward, or I don't even know if he could do that. I mean,
it's like being a father. I got 4 kids. I don't try to be my kids' friends. I mean, we are close, but ultimately, I'm going to tell them, and I'm going to make decisions based on what the best thing is for them, whether they like it or not, and what's the best thing for this family, whether they like it or not. Kyle needs to do the same thing with this team. Agree.
Dave Barclay just wants to remind everyone that Brock is mid. Lyle knows it. What are we doing? Because with we're talking about Kyle and how he deals with strong players. If you bring in Aaron Rodgers, what's Kyle going to do? He's going to be friends with him. Hey, Aaron, I love you. Like me. And Aaron won't respect that. He doesn't respect anyone.
Yeah. And to respond to some of the people in the chat, I'm not saying Kyle needs to be an a-hole to his players. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you can still communicate gracefully and respectfully to your players, but also not with the goal of being their friends. The goal should be to win a Super Bowl.
Tyler Caressley says Grant Ryan, year 9, you know what we have a head coach at this point. Unless Kyle makes significant changes, the ceiling for his team is him. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Dave Barclay says, makes me wonder if Lila's comfortable with himself.
I don't think he is.